Everyone knows that the fastest way to improve in any video game is to just copy whatever the pros are doing, and you should always start with the mouse. So I spent hours going through the VODs and photos of the VCT Masters Toronto event, so I could find out what mouse every player was using, put it in a spreadsheet, and then make a YouTube video in hopes that my hard work would somehow convert into currency. The information I have gathered I believe to be around 95% correct. I haven't used other sources like prosettings.net as I feel this information is only correct with popular players. There were a few mice I couldn't see because it was really dark. Some of the players got little to no screen time at all, so for some of these I had to use my best guess. I even identified mice with the dongles instead, and yes, you're right in assuming that I do not go outside. Another thing to note, it's one mouse per person. The first mouse I see a player use, I'm logging them as using that. To simplify this data and your absorption of it, I have grouped some of the mice together. For example, Zowi's EC1, 2 or 3s are just known as the EC. Basically, regular and mini versions of mice are considered to be the same. So let's begin. The last event I went through was the VCT Masters in Madrid, which had only around 40 players attending. For this event we have gained an extra 20 players or so, thus increasing our sample size. The VCT Madrid event featured just 7 brands. This year we have 10. All 7 of the brands from last year's video, Logitech, Razer, Zowi, Vaxi, Finamous, G-Wolves and Ninjutsu, have survived. The 3 newcomers are WL Mouse, Lamzu and Pulsar. Unsurprising to see these 3 at the event considering the large growth and collaborations they've been a part of since then.
So before we get to which brands had the highest amount of users, leave your guess of the top 4 below. I'll give you a hint, there is a tie for 4th, so you need to guess 5 brands.
Before I reveal the answers, unfortunately, just like the last Valorant video, there's no weird or wacky gaming mice on display, so we have yet to see a reappearance of the G502 or any other mouse that makes you think, how and why are they using that? Out of the 7 manufacturers that were both at this event in Toronto and last year's event in Madrid, 2 brands had a significant drop off in terms of user percentage from the year before. Zowi went from a 12.5% share to a 3.3% share, and the other surprising one is Logitech, who went from a 50% share to a 37.7% share. And there is an interesting thing here as well. Everyone that had a Logitech mouse last year was using a Superlight, and this year it was the same again despite the release of these Superlight decks. And I don't want to give away too many major spoilers for the CS2 video, but it's looking like these Superlight decks might be a Superlight dud for the pro scene. And yes, I am going to repeat this joke in the CS2 video. Hopefully the audiences don't cross over that much. The loss of Logitech share is as a result of the new brands coming through, as well as a few being pinched by Razer. Overall, the least used brands at VCT Masters Toronto are Pulsar with 1 player using the X-Lite, and Ninjutsu with 1 player using the Sora V2. The next lowest were Zowi and G-Wolves, who both had just 2 users. Then we have WL Mouse with their first appearance in these videos, with 3 users, all using the Beast X. Then we have Lamzu, with 4 players, all using a version of the Maya. They are tied with Finamous, who also have 4 users, with everyone using a Ultralight X of some sort. Lamzu and Finamous were the brands that were tied for 4th. Moving up to 3rd place from last year's 4th is Vaxi, with 6 players using their mice at this event, with 4 people using an MP01, 1 E1 and 1 XEV2. Then we get to the last 2 brands, unsurprisingly Razer and Logitech. There's no surprise who's the most popular, it's Logitech with a 37.7% share, but this is the lowest percentage for Logitech I've seen, so could this be a potentially foreshadowing future of Logitech?
If you wish to see the complete data, I might post it in our Discord or put it up on our website. There'll be links below. But the spreadsheet is a bit of a mess right now, so it won't be available straight away.
Razer did make slight gains this year. Most of the players were using a Viper V3 Pro. Interestingly, the most used Razer mouse at the VCT Masters Madrid event was the Viper Mini Signature Edition, as the Viper V3 Pro hadn't released yet. There's only 1 person using it this time around. The remaining mice are the and finally one Death Adder V3 Pro or Hyperspeed user. So the top models were the Logitech G Pro Superlight 1 or 2 with 23 users, the Razer Viper V3 Pro with 10 users, then the Lamzu Maya Mouse Ultralight X and Vaxi MP01 or S with 4 users each. 15 different models across 10 brands.
So now I'm going to address a rather smooth-brained statement that I see made quite often, which is that these players are sponsored and are contractually obligated to use certain mice. This is mostly incorrect. Some teams do require players to use certain keyboards, headsets or monitors at their personal setups, but teams and manufacturers forcing players to use certain gaming mice hasn't been a thing for like 8 years now, especially at the highest level.
Some players have their own image rights in their team contracts, which basically means they are free to commercialize themselves as individuals, which is why we sometimes see players have a sponsorship with their brand, like Second and Razer or Faker and Razer, whose team is actually partnered with SteelSeries. In fact, it's getting to the point now where hardware sponsors for peripherals are becoming less common for teams, and it might be as a result of teams and players no longer agreeing to use certain hardware at a cost to personal performance or comfort. So using the data I have of what mouse every player used, I went through all the teams and their sponsors and checked it against what they were using. Some teams had 3 sponsors that a player could use a mouse for. Paper Rex, for example, had Pulsar, HyperX and Zowie, and none of their players were using a mouse from those companies. Billy, if that's right, is sponsored by Durex. Not relevant at all, I just thought it was funny, and I won't be making any jokes about it due to potential demonetization. Anyway, out of the 61 players I looked at, Liquid used a sub and I didn't bother with others because I didn't want to give myself a headache when I see a random new player appear. Only 18 players were using a mouse that matched a sponsor for their team, and that includes Fnatic with their collaboration with Lamzu. I haven't included individual player sponsorship, but this would probably relate only to a handful of players. 2 of the teams, MIBR and Wolves Esports, had no potential peripheral sponsors. So looking at the data for this year, it's a possibility that Logitech and their complacency might have bitten them rather hard. Valorant often features newer mice when compared to Counter-Strike, so the increased use of newer brands like WL Mouse, Pulsar and Lamzu have taken a sizable chunk out of Logitech's share, and this might show a possible future shift at future events. Some of the surprising things are probably no endgame gear mice, the lack of Zowie mice especially after the refresh of the DW series and their back catalogue, and also the lack of Pulsar mice, especially as they've made significant gains in Counter-Strike. Like and subscribe so you don't miss the CS2 analysis video as well, which does have a larger sample size and has some very weird mice being used. Finally, I don't think Tens is playing anymore.